Hi, I'm Flip Padot. Welcome to Old Bull TV. It's time for the third preseason game in the 2020 primary season as Nevadans get put out to caucus in the wake of Bloombergeddon. We anticipate potentially Iowan levels of chaos, and we've got our picks for first, second, third, and fourth. Let's shoot the bull. Nevada is, of course, the next key test for all the non-Bloomberg candidates left in the race, and there are several hotly traded markets on PredictIt hinging on the results out of the Silver State. We'll see if we can give you an edge against your fellow traders. But first, the chaos. The day after Iowa, we crowned William McCurdy, chair of the Nevada Democratic Party, the most nervous man in America. Iowa set the lowest bar imaginable in terms of caucusing competence, so McCurdy simply couldn't afford not to clear it. So, the state party scrapped their plan to use the Shadow app that helped befoul Iowa and replace it with a highly engineered multi-phase mess seemingly designed to confuse the campaigns and precinct captains across the state. Now, for the first time, Nevada is allowing early voting for the caucus, so for 4 days, folks arrived at early voting locations and embarked on a process described by the Nevada Independent as follows. Early voters were checked in by volunteers on party-issued iPads, preloaded with that location's voter roll, then provided voter cards with unique ID numbers and pins. Voters were asked to input that data into a Google form on the party-issued iPads before filling out a paper ballot with at least their first, second, and third, and optionally their fourth and fifth candidate preferences, then depositing the ballot along with the voter card in a ballot box. Those ballots then got routed to processing hubs throughout the state at the end of each day, and finally, the precinct chairs use an unspecified tool, not an app, mind you, loaded onto those iPads to funnel each round of candidate preferences into the live caucusing process. Many steps to assure paper trails and auditability, but also many points of failure for an electorate and a volunteer corps that's never done this like this before. A couple examples of the ensuing confusion have surfaced already. Bernie Sanders tweeted, then deleted, then retweeted a warning to his supporters that they must not list him as their first, second, and third place candidate or their ballots will not be counted, squarely contradicting the Independent's reporting on what the state party's memo to the campaigns had indicated. And Politico reported that volunteers were predicting a disaster. Thanks to inadequate training, a reporting process adopted on the fly, and blatantly contradictory instructions in the manual as to how to tabulate the alignments after the first round. So say a little prayer both for electoral integrity and for Mr. McCurdy, that he not wind up being made to sit in the corner in a dunce cap, along with Troy Price, the former chair of the Iowa Democratic Party. Anyway, on to the results. Spoiling the runners-up in Nevada is harder than our last go-round in New Hampshire, where we tapped Pete to come in second, netting those who followed that pick about a week before the primary a tidy 100% profit. He'd been the favorite for second place, but a weak enough favorite that there was still good money to be made. Nevada is a messier proposition with 4 candidates in the mix for second. Joe Biden is in second place in the polling average, although 2 of the 3 polls in that average have him at third place or worse, and he really needs to improve on his 4th and 5th place finishes to date. But Biden, as we've been reminding you, just loves underperforming his poll numbers when voters actually vote, by 2.5 points in New Hampshire and 4.5 points in Iowa. If his real average support is not 16, but somewhere south of 15, he's going to miss viability in a large number of precincts, meaning he may lose net support between the first and final alignment, just like he did in Iowa. That's why we don't expect the Zom Biden to snatch a second or even a third place finish, leaving him out in the cold yet again. This could also be really bad news for his firewall in South Carolina, where he's even now only narrowly favored over Sanders. Assuming that another gentleman's fourth does move South Carolina out of Joe's reach, there's an opportunity for nearly a double by betting against him in that market. So the bronze medal we award to Elizabeth Warren. She had perhaps her best debate performance this week, but in a caucus state, she still suffers from the fact that her supporters overlap so heavily with Bernie, the overwhelming favorite. So she won't be able to pick up too many orphaned caucus goers in the subsequent rounds. Otherwise, she's a bit of a mixed bag based on recent data. She did outperform her polling in Iowa, but underperformed it in New Hampshire. And she now bears the shameful mark of hypocrisy for not disavowing her new super PAC money, but she reaps the benefits of all that super PAC money, which is being trained heavily on Nevada voters. She could wind up having a big night and poach the silver medal, and she's pretty cheap at just 20 cents, but we think your money is better spent on, yes, Mayor Pete. This guy does not share Biden's enjoyment of underperforming his poll numbers. In both Iowa and New Hampshire, he came out stronger than the pollsters expected, and caucus goers really dig Buttigieg as a second choice. No one got nearly the boost he did between the first and final alignments in Iowa. He also began the month with more money in the bank than Warren. She's outraised him month to date, which put them roughly at parity before expenditures for the month, but on balance, Pete seems to have a bit more of a tailwind. And finally, the winner, obviously and anticlimactically, will once again be Senator Sanders. Of course, everyone already knows that, so there's not a ton of money to be made in this contract, but what are you going to do? Anyway, that's Nevada spoiled, with a little bit of a bonus meta spoiler of our upcoming South Carolina spoiler episode. Now, in case you were wondering, yes, we do think you should still be buying Mike Bloomberg to win the nomination, and congratulations if you bought during the mid-debate panic selling. He cratered as low as 13 at one point, but has since recovered to the low 20s. We first recommended him at 18, and while the game has certainly changed thanks to that ghastly debate, this price now bakes in such low expectations and loathing that we actually see very good value and short-term catalysts for upward moves, as most members of the JV squad are mathematically certain to collect additional third or worse place finishes over the next week. And of course, the crew will be back for another collective disemboweling of his honor in a few days, during which he'll either outperform couldn't be lower expectations, or he'll be finished off for good, and this trade will work out just horribly. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.